Good morning, friends. So, in the first lecture in chapter 10 Biology, Life Processes, we saw that all organisms, whether unicellular or multicellular, have their own systems, right? Called the metabolic activities, which is a series of biochemical reactions. And for all these metabolic activities, the organism needs energy. So, the organism gets energy through a process called nutrition. So nutrients are the ones that provide energy to the organism, and nutrients are components of food. Means the food contains the necessary nutrients. So in the last lecture we said that if we have need the nutrients like carbohydrate, proteins, vitamins, fats, minerals, then why do we eat the food? So if you think biologically, then you will know that we have got a tongue that likes to taste different things, right? So the fruits, vegetables and other dishes that we eat have to be delicious. So we don't eat food. The best nutritious food for the body is boiled food, because boiling does not kill the nutrients inside food. So boiled food without any spices is the best food for the body. But we will not like to eat tasteless food. We like to eat tasty food. So the food that we eat gives the taste to the tongue, and that brings appetite to us. What is appetite? It is eating of healthy and a proper diet in the proper amount. So when the food is tasty, only then we will eat it. So in this food are the necessary components which gives us the nutrients, and the nutrients provide us energy. So the nutrition process, that is the taking in of food, depends upon the organism. There are plants which are autotrophs, means manufacture their own food, and there are animals and other organisms which are heterotrophs, depend on others for food. In the heterotrophs we have the parasites, the saprophytes and the holozoic type of nutrition. Yes, this was what we did in the lecture 1. Now what I have shown here is one small flow chart talking about a multicellular organism. So the best thing, let us take humans. So human is an organism and which has got a lot of organ systems: digestive system, respiratory system, circulatory system, excretory system. We talked it last time, the different systems in the body. Yes, those systems are made up of specific organs. So from this system, let us pick up the digestive system. The digestive system consists of the mouth, the food pipe, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, and the accessory glands like the liver and the pancreas. So all these are organs, right? Those organs are made up of group of cells with a common function called tissues. So now from the digestive system, let me pick up the stomach. What does the stomach do? The stomach churns the food. Now for churning the food, it should have muscular tissue. Then it secretes gastric juices which contain HCl and pepsin. So it should have some cells which secrete the digestive juices. So stomach is an organ made up of different type of tissues. The muscular tissues churn the food. The glandular tissues secrete the necessary enzymes. And these tissues are a group of cells. Yes. So if you look at the flow chart, an organism is made up of organ systems. The organ systems are made up of organs. The organs are made up of specialized tissues. The tissues are made up of specialized cells. And we have learned before, the cells have the cellular components. Which are the cellular components? Endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi body, mitochondria, cell membrane, nucleus, all these are called cellular components. And every component in the cell has got a specific function. Like every organ system in an organism undergoes specific functions, in the same way in the cell also, all the cellular components have specific functions, which you have learnt before. So, like I told you, if the organism is made up of one cell, unicellular, or made up of a group of Yes, millions of cells. So if we have organism which is unicellular made up of one cell, or an organism made up of billions of cells of organ system, the working processes, the metabolic processes are same for both. So organisms have organ systems, but ultimately it breaks down to cell, and then we reach the cellular components. So whether unicellular or multicellular, everything is finally made up of cellular components. And that is why cell is called the structural and functional unit of life. The cell is called the structural and functional unit of life. Why? As a functional unit, the cell does all the activities that an organism does. And as a structural unit, you can see the structure. Organism made up of organ systems made up of organs made up of tissues, and tissues are made up of cells. So cell is the structural unit of life, the smallest one in the cell. And in the cell we have the cellular components. So all these organ systems, like we discussed before, undergo a series of biochemical reactions, and all these biochemical reactions require energy. And energy we get from the food we eat. So let us now proceed to how the plants get energy. So first we talk about the nutrition in plants. The nutrition, the process by which the plant get its own nutrients. So what do green plants do? They are autotrophs. They make their own food by a process called photosynthesis. Photo means light. Synthesis means to make. So to make food with the help of light is photosynthesis. So in this process, the solar energy, energy from the sun, is converted into starch or carbohydrate or glucose, that is chemical energy. So in photosynthesis, the solar energy is converted into chemical energy. It is only a conversion of energy. Energy is changing from one state to another. From solar, that is light. Okay, now solar has got two parts, light and heat, but we are talking about photo, light. So solar is light turning into chemical. And where does it take place? It takes place in the leaves of the plants. The leaves of the plants are green in color, so we will see why does it take place in the leaves of the plants, yes? Or how are the plants specially designed to convert the solar energy into chemical energy? So first we define photosynthesis, the answer. What is photosynthesis? The process by which green plants synthesize their own food from carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight with the help of chlorophyll. So what are the four basic things needed here? CO2, H2O, sunlight for the energy, and chlorophyll also. Now what is the role of chlorophyll we'll see. But with the help of the process by which the green plants synthesize their own food from CO2 and H2O in the presence of sunlight with the help of chlorophyll. So first we see that this green pigment, chlorophyll, is a green pigment which is necessary for photosynthesis. So this green pigment is what makes the leaves appear green. So the green parts of the plant have got chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is necessary for photosynthesis. So the equation we have is something like this: 6 CO2 plus 12 H2O in the presence of chlorophyll, and with the help of solar energy we get C6H12O6. This is glucose, and again water is released and oxygen is released. Plants give out oxygen. They take in carbon dioxide and they give out oxygen, right? So the raw materials are CO2. So we'll have to see how plants take in CO2 because it needed. Now again, where is the food prepared? The food is prepared in the leaves of the plants. You see this green part, the leaves. They contain chlorophyll. So they are green in color. The food is prepared in the leaves. So the CO2 has to reach the leaves. The H2O also has to reach the leaves. The chlorophyll is already there in the leaves, green pigment, and the sunlight will fall on the leaf. So everything ultimately has to be on the leaf, and the leaf will prepare glucose and give out oxygen. So what are the steps involved in photosynthesis? Now here we have a section of a leaf. Okay, a drawing is shown the leaf. The green part is called the lamina. This top green colored part is called the lamina or leaf blade. So lamina is the whole green color. In the middle we have got a midrib. You can see this diagram, the midrib. What is the midrib for? Like we discussed, water has to reach everywhere. So remember this. And the midrib has got veins. Okay. So now we ask the question, how does the leaves get water? So the plants have got roots and the roots are responsible for the suction of water. So the plants get water from the ground by its roots. And how does it reach the leaves? There are processes inside. Yes, there is a ascent of sap, turgor pressure, root pressure, osmosis. All these processes help the leaf to carry, sorry, not leaf, the plant to carry water from the roots to through the stem. It goes higher, through the branches, through the midribs, and through this vein it reaches in every cell of the leaf, every cell of the leaf. Yes, so this is how water reaches. Now see, this is another cross section of the leaf. Now this, what you can see, the green color. Okay, there is a waxy cuticle. It is shown here, a waxy cuticle. So the top part of the leaf is smooth and the bottom part is rough. Now why is the top part smooth? It is smooth because dust and water should not collect there. So this waxy coating makes sure that the water rolls off. Then you got the upper epidermis, the cells on the top part, and just below you can see what the lower epidermis is, the bottom part of the leaf. So this is the top part and this is the bottom part. Okay, and remember there is much more stomata on the bottom part than on the top part. So the stomata, the maximum number of stomata. What is stomata? We'll see in a short time. And this is the chloroplast. Chloroplast is the plastid, the organ, sorry, the cell component which contains chlorophyll. Okay, and there are even air spaces for the movement of water, and this is a guard cell. Guard cell is a component of stomata. You will see everything very shortly. Now first let us see the steps involved in photosynthesis. First is absorption of solar energy, that is light, by chlorophyll. So the green colored pigment chlorophyll, what does it do? It traps the sunlight, means the energy of the sun. Why it traps the energy of the sun? We just saw. Carbon dioxide and water react to give out glucose. Yes, photosynthesis is what? Reaction of carbon dioxide and water. That reaction needs energy. So how does the plant get energy? The chlorophyll of the plant, the green pigment, it traps the solar energy and stores the solar energy inside the leaf. It stores it. And when it will use it, when it has got enough carbon dioxide and water, it will use this energy to start the process of photosynthesis. So absorption of light energy. Okay. Now conversion of light energy into chemical energy. Now this is not photosynthesis yet. It has not started. The chlorophyll, what is the chlorophyll doing? It is converting the light energy into chemical energy, also splitting of water into oxygen and hydrogen. This is called photolysis of water, means breaking the water with the help of light, called photolysis of water. So when the sunlight is coming in, yes, the chlorophyll traps the energy, and with that energy the water inside is broken into oxygen and hydrogen. You know water is H2O, made up of two molecules of hydrogen, yes, and sorry, two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. The energy separates the oxygen and hydrogen. So the energy is breaking up, energy is breaking oxygen and hydrogen. Which energy? The light energy. After the energy is trapped, okay, after the energy is trapped, then with the help of that energy, when the plant has enough CO2, the CO2 is reducted, means hydrogen is added and it turns into carbohydrates. So the sun's energy is trapped by chlorophyll, and when the plant has enough CO2 and enough water, then that energy will make the H2O and water react to give out carbohydrates, which is the form of chemical energy. So this is photosynthesis. Again, where does it take part? It takes place in the leaf of the plant. Why the leaf of the plant? The leaf of the plant is designed. Yes, nature has designed. It has a green pigment called chlorophyll, which can trap the sunlight. So it traps the sunlight, stores the energy. With the help of that energy, the carbon dioxide and water react to form carbohydrates and glucose. That is a form of energy. So we talked about chloroplast. Yes, chloroplast is the cell component which contains chlorophyll. So now we can see the diagram. This is the chloroplast. It is the cell component which contains chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is very important for photosynthesis, we saw. So chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis. It is present in the cell organelles called chloroplast. So chloroplasts are plastids, written in red, plastids. They are green in color because of chlorophyll. And what is the function of chlorophyll? To trap the sun's energy. So all this is, hope I clear to you. Now plastids are of three types. Chloroplast is green because of chlorophyll. Then there are chromoplast. What does chromoplast mean? Colored plastids. So the color of different leaves, the color of flowers, the colors of fruits are all because of chromoplast. And there is one leucoplast which is colorless. Okay, in the previous section, when you did the cell, structure of the cell, you must have done this. This is just for revision purpose. And what I told you, if you remember, the stomata, the guard cell, will come to that. They are more on the bottom part than on the top part. So, now we begin our section. Now plants, from where do they get carbon dioxide? So they get carbon dioxide directly through the environment, through the air. How they take it through the air? Through stomata. Now we'll see what this stomata is. Stomata are tiny pores or holes or openings present on the surface of the leaf. And like I told you, there are more present on the bottom surface of the leaf than the top surface. Now massive amount of gaseous exchange. Here the exchange takes place through the stomata. The stomata is the opening. Okay? And exchange of gases can take place across stems and roots as well. They also have stomata, but leaves have the maximum stomata. Where does the carbon dioxide reach the leaf? The carbon dioxide reaches the leaf directly through the air. So there is an opening. You can see this stomata. This is the diagram of stomata. In stomata, you have guard cells. When you see this guard cells, the guard cells are called turgid. Why they are turgid? They have taken in water and become turgid. They are biconcave in nature. Can you see the shape? The shape of the guard cell is biconcave. When they absorb water, they swell up and there is an opening in between. So this opens up. So what happens here? Carbon dioxide comes in. But when carbon dioxide is coming in, you have opened this. The guard cells are open. Carbon dioxide comes in, oxygen goes out. But along with that, even water can go out. The water vapor can go out. So sometimes when the water vapor has to be saved, then the guard cells will close. See, here they are closed. These are called flaccid. So the guard cells give out the water and close. Why they close? Because while carbon dioxide is coming in, water can go out. To stop the prevention of water going out, the guard cells close. So stomata is made up of two guard cells. Stomata is an opening which is made up of two biconcave guard cells. These guard cells open and close to make the gases come in and go out. And again I told you what? Large amounts of water can be lost through the stomata. Now from where did the water reach the leaves? Water is taken from the soil by the roots in terrestrial plants. And aquatic plants are already living in the water. But the water has reached the leaves. Okay, from the root the water has reached the leaves. If the guard cells open for CO2 to come in, then water can go out. So the opening and closing of the pore is a function of the guard cell. Right? The guard cells swell up. When water flows into them, the guard cells swell up and the stomata opens. When it opens, carbon dioxide can come in, but water can go out. So to stop water going out, after some time the guard cells close down. Yes. So we have seen how CO2 comes in through the stomata, how water reaches, what is absorbed by the roots and reaches to the stem, to the leaves. So now the raw materials have reached the leaves. And then this raw material is converted into carbohydrates in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. And carbohydrate is what provides the energy to the plant. Okay, so now the plant is day and night doing its own metabolic functions. So it uses up the carbohydrate, but doesn't use everything. It only uses what it needs, and the extra it stores for future use. So there the carbohydrates are converted into starch. Starch is the higher form of carbohydrates and it is stored for future use, which is called the internal energy reserve. Yes. So sometimes the plant doesn't get nutrition, then it can take the nutrition which is stored and live by it. Okay, but now we saw carbon dioxide and water make carbohydrates, but the plants, the autotrophs, they also need other raw materials for building their body. They need nitrogen in a small amount, they need phosphorus in a small amount, they need iron in a small amount, and they need magnesium also. So the major component of food is carbon dioxide and water, that is to form carbohydrates, but the plant also needs other minerals, you can see here. So nitrogen is an essential element used in the synthesis of proteins. From nitrogens we have amino acids, and amino acids are the building block of proteins. So proteins, nitrogens are very important. Okay, so the plant takes in nitrogen, how? Through the soil as nitrites and nitrates, and sometimes we have got nitrogen fixing bacteria living in the root nodules of leguminous plants, which directly convert the nitrogen into air into nitrites and nitrates. And nitrites and nitrates are absorbed by the roots of the plant. So now we see what photosynthesis was. Now what is the significance? Why photosynthesis is very important on this planet called Earth? First is food. The green plants prepare food from materials like CO2 and H2. So because the plants make the food, life sustains life on earth. The plants are living, animal eating the plants are also living, animals eating plants and other animals are also. So basically all the food requirement comes through the plants. So the first significance of photosynthesis, it provides food to all the living creatures on the earth directly or indirectly. Second, oxygen is given out during photosynthesis. Oxygen, animals and humans cannot live without oxygen. So photosynthesis also provides oxygen to animals and humans. So, and oxygen also supports combustion of fuel. So everything is possible because of photosynthesis, which releases oxygen. Third, fuels. When the plants and animals die and are buried deep inside the earth, due to the temperature and pressure of the earth, they get converted into fuels like coal, oil and natural gas. Yes? So by photosynthesis, what is prepared, the plants and animals after they die and after millions of years, they make fuels. So photosynthesis provides us food to the plants directly and indirectly to the animals. It provides oxygen and it provides fuels for humans also. Now we'll start with the nutrition part. So since we have done autotrophs, we have finished with the plant, we'll now move to the animals. Okay, so what we can see about the animals now. So we go first to the unicellular organism made up of one cell, that is the amoeba. So amoeba is a living organism. It does all the metabolic activities. Which one? Nutrition, digestion, respiration, circulation, excretion, reproduction, all of them. But it is made up of only one cell. So here is a diagram showing us the amoeba, how it takes the food through feet called pseudopodia. Pseudopodia means false feet. You can see the amoeba has no shape. Whenever it sees food, it makes two legs to engulf the food inside. These are called pseudopodia, means false feet. Then the food that is taken in is kept in a vacuole. It is not mixed directly, it is kept with a vacuole. In this vacuole, it secretes digestive enzymes and breaks up the food totally here. Okay, when the food is broken down, the useful components are mixed with the cell. It is called absorption. Then the cell will use it for different purposes called assimilation. And whatever waste remains, it throws out again by the same way called egestion. So these are the 5 steps in the nutrition of amoeba. Let us see one by one in detail. Ingestion. Now I told you amoeba has no shape. It has no special organs. It has no mouth. So how does it take the food inside? By the two false feet called pseudopodia. Pseudo means false and podia means feet. So through the false feet, so wherever it sees food, it makes two pseudopodia to engulf the food. Okay? So it takes the food, and amoeba lives in water. So it takes the food with little water inside what I call a food vacuole. So this is a food vacuole. The food is kept inside a food vacuole. So next step comes is digestion. So in that food vacuole, digestive enzymes are present or secreted, and it breaks the food, break this food into small soluble molecules by chemical reaction. So in the food vacuole, it is broken down, right? Broken down. When it is broken down, what happens? The digested food, what is digested, is absorbed by the cytoplasm. Absorbed by the cytoplasm by diffusion. Now I hope you remember the definition of diffusion. Diffusion is the movement of particles from the region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration through a fully permeable membrane. So this food vacuole, yes, it had a membrane around it. Okay, a membrane. Then the digested food spreads out from the food vacuole into the whole cell. So whatever is digested is moved inside the cell. So after the absorption, the food vacuole disappears. Now assimilation. The digested food which has entered the cell needs to be used up. So the food taken is used to obtain energy through respiration. What is respiration? The food is now oxidized to release the energy. So some food is used for the energy and the other food is used for growth. That is assimilation, making use of the food. And after the useful components of foods are taken, what remains is the waste. So the undigested food, it collects inside the cell only, and the cell membrane reaches the border end and ruptures. So here the cell membrane ruptures. And when it ruptures, what happens? The undigested food is thrown out of the body, and this process is called egestion. So today we are doing the nutrition in amoeba with its 5 steps. Now the mode of nutrition in amoeba is holozoic. Why holozoic? Because it took the food, whole food inside, it digested the food by itself and threw out the waste. So this process is called holozoic. And the process of obtaining food is called phagocytosis, which means cell feeding. Okay, so phagocytosis means taking the whole food and feeding on that. Yes, and throwing out the waste. Now also remember the WBC, the white blood cells in the human body, which fight against diseases, also have got a function structure similar to this. The white blood cell also do phagocytosis. When it sees a harmful germ inside the body or a pathogen inside the body, it will engulf it just like the amoeba, break it down, kill it and break it down, and then give out the waste. Right? It may or may not use the cell components, but what does it do? It takes the harmful germ in its vacuole, releases very strong digestive enzymes, which kills the germ, and then the germ is thrown back into the blood where it is given out through the excretory system. So today we have done photosynthesis. We saw what are the raw components of photosynthesis. We saw how energy is trapped by the sunlight, is trapped by the chlorophyll stored inside, and then how that energy is used to combine carbon dioxide and water into carbohydrates. And then we saw what is the significance of photosynthesis, and in last we saw nutrition in amoeba. So here we have done for unicellular organism. In the next lecture we will move to nutrition in human beings. Multicellular organisms, and especially we are going to talk about the digestive system in human beings. How nature has designed the digestive system for humans and how humans have evolved. And this series, I told you, takes millions of years. So the present digestive system of humans came through necessary changes throughout evolution. So we end the chapter, the lecture here today, and I will see you with the next lecture very soon. Thank you.